On this episode of The Ungrowth Show, we're going to talk about business ethics, reputation over revenue, and what it means to you. Well, Mike, today we want to talk a little bit, it's a little kind of different kind of tangent of things that we normally talk about on the Ungrowth Show. But we want to talk today about the unintended impacts or detrimental impacts that you can have on your company culture and the importance of reputation over revenue.
Yes.
So it's a little different.
One of our core principles there, right?
Right, yeah. So it's a little different thing that, as we get into is companies sometimes unintentionally submarine their best intentions, and in turn cause much ungrowth.
Yes, much.
All right. So I'm going to just kind of read the story here, and I don't like to be accusatory of anybody or be overly negative, but hey, the courts said these people were guilty, not me.
I've heard different, but go ahead, read it.
I'm not trying to be judgy. The good book says, but I don't have to be. They paid the fine. Court said they had to pay it, not me. All right, so here's the story. In 2016, it was revealed that Wells Fargo employees had opened millions of fraudulent bank and credit card accounts without customer consent.
Good times.
Seems like an issue, right?
Yeah, I can't see why that would be good.
All right, so this practice was driven by a corporate culture that prioritized aggressive sales goals over ethical customer service. The scandal originated in the bank's community banking division, where employees were under intense pressure to meet daily sales quotas. So we can start with it. We can probably extrapolate from there the rest of it.
Yeah, this story.
So at the heart of this thing, employees were incentivized a certain way, right?
Yep.
And
that's how they're paid. I got to make my money.
And so they did what was kind of best for them. What'd you think?
Yeah.
Right. So, are there instances where sometimes we can look at and we say, "Well, I'm trying to motivate the team in a particular way. I'm trying to put this special program in place," but it has the exact opposite effect?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I think it's just thinking through these programs or incentive programs. But like on this one with Wells Fargo, I mean, the tragedy with this is that they set it up in a sales compensation kind of way. Like, everyone has to have a certain level of sales, and that's how you're going to make money. And that they wanted to be able to sell a good cross section of the products, and so they thought, well, we'll take these customers who we already have. In their opinion, they opened a banking account of some kind, checking, savings, and they need a mortgage, they need credit cards, they need all this. So, they didn't just like call them and say, "Hey, Brad, you qualify or pre-qualify for a credit card. Let's open it up." They opened up credit cards in your name using the information they had without telling you. They even put their own email addresses in so that they would get the notifications and maybe even address so they would get the bills so you wouldn't know. Like they were opening up accounts in customers' names using the information they had to make their sales quotas and not telling their customers and then even going to the lengths of hiding it. And they did this for years, and they did it for millions, like you said. So there's a difference between, let's put an incentive program together that it may build itself into some unintended consequences. If people were unethical, because they're just trying to find an easy out to try to cut a corner. But this was, it became a culture of doing it wrong on purpose. Leadership knew it, managers knew it, and they just kind of let it run rampant. They developed a culture of being deceitful to hit their sales targets and paid a lot of people really well and then also deceiving their customers. So this is an extreme case, but yeah, sometimes it can start with, I just tried to put the sales incentive plan together and it went wrong.
For folks that aren't familiar with it, so I'll just continue reading. So Wells Fargo's management set unrealistic cross-selling targets, famously promoting the mantra, 8 is great, encouraging employees to push 8 products per household. Employees were incentivized through a combination of bonuses and the threat of job loss to meet these targets. To achieve these impossible goals, many employees resorted to unethical practices such as opening unauthorized accounts, falsifying customer information, and moving funds between accounts without customer knowledge. Okay, so none of that good, right? But we can see this. I mean, not all of us are in FinServ.
Right.
You know, not all of us have access to move money around and shuffle things around. But we've all been in scenarios where, well, let's come back up a little bit. A lot of times a consumer or a business owner or organization, they feel vulnerable in a couple different ways, in a couple different areas. A lot of times that vulnerability will expose itself in a financial aspect. They're not really sure what the numbers are, and so they will kind of take the word of an expert for fear that they will either seem uneducated is not the right word, but ill-informed about where they believe they should know specific things and they don't, so they feel vulnerable about that. Another aspect where a lot of times organizations feel vulnerable is changing or disruptive technologies, right? They feel like they should be on top of their game, they should know these things, but they're doing other things, they're doing their business, but they feel sometimes embarrassed when a vendor or somebody will come along and expose something to them, and they either can act like they know about it but a lot of times it's an exposure that people are not necessarily comfortable with. And so there is a great trust that has to be placed into your vendors in some of these areas. When you are vulnerable in a particular area, you have to put great trust in the people that you're putting in those seats to help you out there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we have all been in situations where, like, I know that you don't necessarily know 100% the full gamut of or range of services that we could provide. Therefore, I could offer all of them to you and tell you that you need all of them in the same capacity. So that's the classic oversell. You know, go to Fargo. Oh, yeah, need that undercoating. Oh, I'll get right on that.
Rust proofing.
Right. So how do you develop that type of reputation? How do you develop that type of culture that says, you know what, I am not going to take the trust that you place in me for granted. I'm going to act above board. I'm going to put your success above my own. A lot of times, if we can't both succeed, it's not a success. So how do you select those vendors, and the same way, how do you build a culture that promotes that?
It can be tricky, especially like with the advent of AI and other things that can just be so easily used to manipulate, and trust is at an all-time low just in the world. I mean, we all want to trust everyone in our life, and when you go about doing, say, a technology project or something, get with a vendor, when you sign that contract with us, it's trust. They're trusting us not just to implement things correctly, but to do all the things that we wrote in the statement of work and do them well. And when you're in that situation as a vendor and you're working with a customer, you have access to their data. You can have our MDAs, and we have all those things and those instruments for legal protection. But at the end of the day, you want to believe that the people you're working with are trustworthy, and we take it very serious. That's one of my favorite core principles we have is reputation over revenue. So any program we'll put together, any project we're leading, is all about making sure that we're one of the ways that we're guiding ourselves is making sure our reputation is paramount and it's protected, and the trust that we're given is just handled with the way you should handle it, which is with a lot of attention and a lot of just care, because it can be so easily lost. And we want our reputation out there to be golden, and you do that over time. It takes time. But once you get rolling with it and you do it consistently, that's where you can do that. But then other customers want to know, who have you done business with? And when they talk with them, we have no issue with letting our customers talk to so because we know what our reputation is, and we know that we've valued that over revenue, and we always have our customers' best interest at heart. So if we're going to do a project, or if we put something in place like an incentive or anything, if that ever has an inkling about ruining our reputation in some way, or there's some way someone could cut a corner that would we're going to nix that right away because or we're probably going to iterate it, to make sure that it's going to fit our culture. But yeah, everyone can say it, but it's really, you got to search long and wide and give people a chance, and then let them earn it.
So it says, due to the bank's decentralized management structure, a lot of times these practices went unnoticed, but when they did notice them, they continued to let it fester
For years.
thinking that it was, maybe that's just an isolated or it's not systemic.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is to you, as the layup, the LeBron James
All right.
layup. How many times is okay for you to abuse a customer's trust?
0, none, ever. You just can't.
So
You just can't do it.
So once you find out that these things have happened, what is the best way? And I guess it depends upon the situation of what happened with that particular customer.
Yeah.
But are there some general things that we can do? It's like, we know that in this case, we did not act up to our own set of standards.
Oh, sure.
How do you address that with the customer? One, has it even got back to the customer? Do they even know? Maybe it's just something that you find out. So what do you need to put in place, some checks and balances in place to know that, we're not living up to our own values and we're going to change that right now?
You got to make sure that everyone understands what your values are, first of all, and that you take them seriously. I'm sure, if you look back during this time and you read the Wells Fargo's, I don't know what they are, but if you looked at their core values and read them aloud, they're not going to line up, most likely, with this. Because if core values are just something you create or guiding principles, if you will, that you're just going to put on a coaster, a T-shirt, or hang on the wall, and none of your employees can recite them, then that's not a good culture. And it's not meaningful. What you want is a group, a team, a company that understands what is our culture all about and who are we, and be honest with those things. Don't make it just some mission statement that nobody can recite. Make them real, live them out. Leadership needs to live those out. And as long as that happens, then you can create teams that believe in something and really will do this really effortlessly. It's just part of who they are. It's part of their DNA now, is how we operate. And that if something like anything that comes up, even like if you're on a project or if there's some program that's been put in place and you start seeing some unintended consequences, because a lot of times it's not malicious. It's really just things that people just know, wink, wink, little elbows, you'll get away with it. There's no accountability. Leadership's not really looking at that. And you can get away with things. That's what you really want to train your teams to say. Those are the things that need to be brought to light. And you said, well, what if it impacted a client and they don't even know about it? We tell them. We wanted them to hear it from us first if something went wrong or sideways. So we want to encourage everyone to bring that up to whoever it is, appropriately, to your manager, whatever it is. Let's talk about it. Let's make sure we understand all the details and really what happened. And then we're going to tell our client. We got to be transparent to build trust. There are things that we've brought to light with customers, maybe not something we've done, but maybe Microsoft, one of our partners, a change in a policy or a program that's going to impact them. We had one where we had a project, and it was about, like, say, D365, like sales data. And we have a way with this utility that we could put the utility in and charge them some services money, a license money, and we can get the data moved off to, say, like blob storage or something, and mean a little bit of revenue to us. But then there was an update that Microsoft made that coming soon, that was going to be free. Microsoft was just going to do it for everybody in the background. You don't even have to sign up for it. They were just going to do it. We could have just kept that in place and that money and did it our way, even though it was going to be free to them in a few months, because we as a partner knew about it. They didn't know. But we went to the client and we told them, hey, this is happening. We could still do it if you want. We would recommend waiting for the free version. And that's what they did. And they pulled that back, and it all worked out for them great. And we still work with that client because they trust us. They trust us to look out for them and to tell them these things, or else they would feel like maybe they're being taken advantage of. It's just not what we do.
So our employees have to be empowered in a way to, I guess, see something, say something, and they have to
fully empowered. Yeah.
To do what? What?
Recognize things that could go against any of our core values. We want to be team players. We want to be problem solvers. We want to make sure that we're providing good, clear, accurate information and data. And it's more than just implementing tech. It's about making sure we're doing it the TrellisPoint way. And they are empowered that if you see something that's unethical, or if you see something that would maybe hurt our reputation, and we don't want to really tell the client because then maybe we would lose some revenue. That any of those things, if they see that, they are empowered to bring that up to the client directly, for sure. But if they want to have assistance with that, they can bring it up to the project lead. They can bring it up to anyone at leadership at TrellisPoint, and we'll work our way through that with them, and we'll go to the client and make sure they know. And we're not holding nothing back. We're very transparent about what's happening in every project and with our customers because, again, we value that more than revenue, and it's served us well.
Yeah, so, I mean, it doesn't even necessarily have to be kind of on an unethical thing.
No.
It could be because as developers or consultants are in there looking at things, oftentimes at the start of a project, you may think that this is a particular way we have to solve this problem. This is what we're going to do. It's going to take these amount of hours. That's what the price is going to be at the end of it.
Yeah.
But as they get in there, it's like, oh, wait a second, maybe we don't have to go that hard. We can just go this way and shave a good amount of it. So the right thing to do is not to sit there and just bill hours.
Correct.
Right? And so
it's about solving problems.
And so how can we advise not just our clients, but individuals who are watching this show, what kind of checks and balances, system processes can you put in place that your organization, your people are empowered to report to things without reprisal, to suggest things that are always on the benefit of the customer, even to the detriment of your own business? That's a hard thing to document a lot of times, but or to swallow. But how can folks go about doing that in their own organization?
Well, I mean, I think when it comes to like trust, well, one, they should have all their core values, guiding principles. What do they call it? They should take if they're on a wall, if they don't have them, they should create them. If they create them, they shouldn't be so, buzzwordy that no one remembers what they are and they're not meaningful. They should make them meaningful and then get them in the hands of employees and empower them to live it out. And even to the point of asking them, questions about when's the last time you walked this one out or that one. But over time, you build a culture of if this is what you want your company to be, then you can coach and train people into doing those things. You can incent them for customer service and things. This is just what we do. It's how we operate here. We have our thing. It's the TrellisPoint way. But I think that it has to be real and it has to be impactful, and you've got to be able to have real examples, recent real examples of people living your culture. And we've worked with clients before and they'll say, well, we don't really have a culture. Yeah, you do. You either intentionally have one or you unintentionally, but you absolutely have a culture. But if you get a big group of people together and you're trying to do anything impactful or meaningful, you got to give them guidance. You got to give them leadership and accountability and reward systems. And you need to train on it, educate, and have them live it out. You don't have to put it on T-shirts, but you definitely want to see real examples of it every day in your workplace.
Ask you maybe a loaded kind of question here as well. Is your culture more important than any one individual?
If you mean, I want to say yes, if what you mean is that we are not going to compromise our culture just to help someone become more comfortable with going against what we believe, and meaning that we are reputation over revenue, except for this one person who routinely chooses to hide things from the client, not be transparent, and they're cashing checks and they're hiding things. They're going against it. Just in our world, it's not tolerated because this is what we do. But it doesn't mean that we don't care about individual people and what they think, because we want to make sure that we're listening and hearing and understanding where someone's coming from. But really, it's more of it's a habit. It's something that someone's doing that's counter to our culture.
Yeah, well,
they have a hard time.
Here's more of kind of where my thought process was going. You have companies that have a lot of high, they're impactful people. They're high value resources.
Yeah.
They're the ones who keep the wheels turning.
Yeah.
They're the highest earning salesperson.
Sure.
They're the one technical resource that everything revolves around. Everybody goes to this person, asks for counsel and advice. If that person's not there anymore,
Yeah,
everything will
highly
come-
valued people.
highly valued people are going to come to a screeching halt, but they are poisonous a lot of times, right? Is it?
Yes.
They go contrary to the things that you've got on that wall, or you're communicating.
Yeah, some can. I wouldn't say no, not every case that happens, but yeah, but sure. Yeah, I mean there are some. Just like with sports analogies, you got those guys receivers. I don't know why it's always a receiver, but they're cancer in the locker room, right? They're not good teammates.
Right. That's what I mean. I'm not saying
Yeah.
no. Obviously, it's not every time.
Yeah.
No,
Or
obviously not.
everybody.
But
Yeah.
there is that potential. Well, this person
Sure.
did this, but you know what? He billed $4 million last year.
Yeah, well, that though goes against, I think, everything that you say you stand for. That's a quick way to torpedo your culture and your business. Is if everyone is, this is how we live, except for certain people. When you can get to a certain level, you can ignore what we believe in. I know a lot of companies. You've been a part of those cultures. I have too. It's toxic. It's not good. Now, what about that one individual? A lot of times, they don't start there. Maybe they I've seen folks like that, and they grow into that, and there's usually something behind that. And you got to care enough about people to understand it and why. You want to love them back into it and coach them back into it to get more in alignment. But you can't compromise what you tell your customers, the market, your employees, what you believe, and then obviously let certain people get away with it because they bill a lot of money or they're really that makes no sense to me. I mean, that is not a way I would ever recommend you run a business.
Yeah, so we've got to have those critical got to be willing to have those critical conversations at some
Open,
point.
transparent, yeah, absolutely.
And
And,
that goes-
again, I think that there's always something behind that with someone, and you just want to help them get to the heart of what that is and get them back into where we all believe when we're here at work, because you want to fight for people, you want to care for them, but in an event that they can't, they won't, and believe it or not, I mean, it's better to let them go do something different so that you can move on in a way that is healthy for the entire organization and your customers.
Yeah. Well, so as we move on with the upshot here, so after much investigation in court case or whatever, they started out with a $185 million fine, which ballooned after they uncovered the full extent, ballooned to a $3 billion fine penalty settlement by 2018. So they just let this thing continue to go on, and maybe not all of us will be blessed with the opportunity to pay a $3 billion fine, right?
Right.
But we can't just let things continue to go on and go on. Even we know we have to address them, even though they're uncomfortable conversations. They're a loss in the moment. They're painful in the moment.
Yeah.
Well, you can't let these things continue to go on and wreck the entire company based upon.
That's not what we would recommend. I mean, that people do. Wells Fargo did. Wells Fargo's still around. But again, I think sometimes what you have to be mindful of is the leadership of this, the management of it, the accountability of it. I mean, I could put together a program for recruiting or for sales or for something and believe that this is a wonderful program and has all of our core values piped into it. It's going to help and build our business. It's going to be great. And then you put it out there. And if someone figures out a way to shortcut it, go against our values, and it looks like they're winning, and I see that and I let it go, that's on me. I need to be able to monitor it and build those safeguards in, and then have talks with that person. Like, you can't, we're not going to do that. Because if you let it go, it turns into this. Where if I'm not monitoring it, that person may teach someone else about how to cut the corners, and now our culture is sort of out of whack. Which this was what this was, and then you had leadership in some cases incenting the poor behavior. So, of course, this is eventually it's going to lead to something terrible like this. But yeah, it just really goes to how you want to run your company, the kind of company you want. These are people that you work with. I mean, you're going to spend more time with them a lot of times than your family, and you want it to be somewhere where everyone can thrive and work well together. But again, talking about human beings, it's a complex thing sometimes.
And we've been kind of hammering home the business ethics, in the point of this discussion. But when we opened up, we talked about unintended consequences, and maybe we'll kind of lighten it up a little bit. A lot of times we can do things for the right reasons from a company culture standpoint.
Sure.
That have unintended consequences. And I know, as we were talking earlier, you had at least one or two examples of where we did things that we thought was, but it really, when it got into practice, it affected people on an emotional level a different way than we thought it would. And you were talking about, some competition, employee competition, things of that nature. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the thing is, I think, because, like sales, it can be competitive, and you can put something out there and say, okay, I want to put a program together, and you're going to earn points. And the way you earn points is to do this. And the point system, for those who are very competitive, they're going to thrive in that. They're going to love it. We're going to put and this is a big thing that sales teams can do too, is we're going to put your name up on the big company board for the entire company to see. And that would really drive some to be at the top of that board or near the top. But to others who do not thrive in that way, who may be incredible, they're going to be at the bottom of that board, and we're going to publicly shame them until maybe they quit. And you didn't mean for them to quit. You didn't want them to quit. You just really thought this would be fun. This would be a good way to incent people. But some of the unintentional consequences could be that you're going to start either driving behavior that you didn't mean to drive, or you may lose good people, or all of a sudden a team that really, really gelled and got along and worked well together are no longer that cohesive. They now have a mindset of it's one for all, and they're going to stop sharing data or information with each other because now you're my competitor, you're not my teammate. And I'm saying too that if you have a sales team and you are all about competition and you hire into that way, that's what you want, then yeah, that's a way you can manage. I mean, I've seen things like that work pretty well, but it's what I'm talking about is taking programs and applying it to current teams who've never had that before. It could really backfire in a lot of ways. So yeah, it's not not fun to watch people crumble under the pressure sometimes, right?
So culture is a very tenuous thing. Mm-hmm. It is established over years and years. It's hard fought, hard won, little victories here at a time, but it can be torn down or chipped away at pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so it's something that is one of our most valuable assets that we need to protect as an organization is your reputation, is your culture, and what do you stand for, and how you're going to operate, and how you're going to do it 100% of the time. So as we wrap up this episode of the Ungrowth Show, not so much our normal episode, but we did want to communicate that we understand that, a lot of times we are in the dynamics realm. Not a lot of people, or not everybody in the world, is familiar with how Microsoft operates, and we understand that this is not everybody's forte, but it is ours. And so we will always put we'll do our best to earn your trust in that, put our reputation, we value our reputation more than the revenue that you could provide. So you can feel free and open with us as you come to us with your technology problems. There's no guilt or shame we don't look at people and say, oh my goodness, why do you have that ramshackle system? How did you even get here?
Right.
What dummy put that together?
Right, now we get it.
You built everything that you have for a reason at that moment.
Yeah.
And there was no bad intentions when you built it. Sometimes it just needs things to change. And so there will be no judgment. There will be no embarrassment. No. And we are just here to help. That's obviously what we want to do. We
solve
just want
problems, help business outcomes.
Yeah, we just want to help you succeed and get to where you want to be. And any part that we can play in that, we're happy to do. So we thank you for joining this episode of the Ungrowth Show. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down there. I know you have your own experiences with situations that come up from day to day in a business. We'd love to hear them. So feel free to write them down there. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down there as well. Contact us. As always, like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you next time on the Ungrowth Show.